So I had a completely different plan for the upcoming episodes, and magic happened. I actually had found the other day conversation with Spirit. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. But I had a conversation with Spirit the other day, and I actually, every time I have conversations, I usually write it down because it's usually automatic writing, or if it happens in my head, sometimes I like to take notes because I have a tendency of forgetting. I think that my brain does that in order to like have a space for everything. I have a very active mind, and so many things are happening in my brain, and so many new downloads, and so many client conversations, and so many ideas. So I think like my brain has a way to like forget certain things in order to give way for others. And I also think that that's the reason why I'm able to have so many different perspectives, because I don't really hold on to like anything really, really strongly. Like I have a way of like forgetting things in order to give a space for some other new ideas to come through. Anyway, I always start this episode like, welcome to the episode. I always start this episodes and I'm like, okay, where are we going? I know exactly where we're going, but sometimes it's like the words are just coming faster than I can even like have, control over what's going on over here. So the first thing that I want to say is thank you for watching the episodes. Thank you for listening to the episodes. It's super new to me to have the video part of the podcast. I've had this podcast since a long time ago. I think it's been since 2018 that I've had this podcast. Funny enough, I started with a friend of mine. We were yoga teachers at the time, and we just had this idea of a start a podcast. And I remember one time she was like, "Oh, we should like start a podcast. We have great conversations." And she was like, "Yeah, but I have no idea how to start a podcast." And I was like, "Oh, no worries. I'll figure it out." And that's like usually my attitude towards things. Like, I don't know everything, but I have no problem figuring shit out. Like, I will just get geeky on things and just like figure things out as I go. And so I did. And we started with a podcast, and I had no idea about how editing the podcast, like, had no idea about editing or publishing or what you're supposed to do or not do. Like, who the fuck cares? Like, I did it and we had a great time. I think that by the year mark, she decided that she was taking on other projects, and I decided to just be the whole owner of the podcast. And ever since, it's been so beautiful. But I had never actually done it in video, like ever again, like ever. And the cool thing that I liked about the podcast, it's like I usually just did it on my PJs or on my robe or like super cozy, just like looking at the window, staring at nothing and just talking. So it has been an adjustment to like do it on video and to talk. If you're listening to the podcast and you have not seen the YouTube videos, I welcome you. Like, I invite you to see the videos to see which one you like better. And I did it because sometimes, honestly speaking, like I like to hang out with the people that I am choosing to listen to. It's been a shift for me to declutter so much what I allow in my brain, because like I said, my mind already has so much going on. And now that I'm coming back to channeling so much and talking so much with spirit, which is what this episode is going to be about, I'm going to let you in on what it actually looks like for me to speak to spirit, which was the initiation of my work. Like when I was a yoga teacher, I began to just notice that, yes, it was my voice speaking, but like I could hear a lot of things and I could receive messages that felt like the next obvious thing to say. And so I began almost like channeling, and I had a period of my life when I was doing trance channeling, which meant that like I literally let go of like my body and I just let the energy move, and it was really fun. I don't do trance channeling that much anymore. It has been more integrated. Like I really don't have to like lose control of my body or anything like that. Like it's a lot more embodied and integrated now, and I like it more this way. Anyway, and so channeling has always been part of like my magic and my work. And so for a while there, I kind of stopped. Like there were about 2 years or so where it was not the sole focus of my work, and I went on to my own like journey, as you probably heard in another episode where I talk about the dark night of the soul and like my disconnection with spirit and how like disheartened and disconnected I felt from spirituality. I kind of like questioned all of my beliefs, and everything kind of like stopped making sense. And that was a whole journey on its own that helped me come back to it now stronger than ever from a more discerning place of like, okay, I'm not just like blindly believing in magic, but like I have worked with it. I have taken it out of my life and see the results of that. I have taken it back in my life and see the results of that. And so I'm actually very excited to welcome you into these deep conversations, these intimate conversations, because what I really like when it comes to talking to spirit, talking to higher consciousness is like, yes, the conversations are a little sometimes abstract, but what I really like about it is like when you listen to these episodes, there are going to be 3 of them because there has been 3 conversations that I want to share with you. What I like about this conversation that I was talking to my friend not too long ago, that I told her that I had the idea of like these 3 episodes are like highly spiritual in a way, because you can actually, I mean, the thing is that things that I'm going to share with you, you can take them from like a very deep spiritual perspective, but you can also apply it to life and apply it to business, which is the layers that I'm talking about. Like these conversations have so many layers. And so I was telling my friend that, like, first of all, I was feeling a little like nervous because these are going to be really spiritual episodes. And I was like, I don't even know why I'm nervous if like my whole career started because I'm a spiritual as fuck. And so I'm like, what happened there? But for a while, I like didn't say, I don't want to say I limited, but I actually did restricted is also not a word that I want to use because it's not accurate. But I dimmed down. Yeah, that's the one. I dimmed down my spiritual part because within me, and like I've always been really true to what I'm feeling. And the truth is that I felt in a way disconnected in my own personal journey with spirituality for a while there. And so I was not necessarily talking about it too much. Of course, the foundation of everything that I share is energetics and yes, the spirituality and personal development. But for a while there, I was not going like too woo woo. Like I remember that like when I started my my business, I was talking about aliens and talking about like really like out there in the universe kind of things. And for a while there, I just didn't enjoy those conversations because I was questioning everything. And I think this is a healthy thing. Like if you've been a spiritual your whole life, I think it's important to sit with yourself and ask and just question, be a little like skeptical. Like I literally welcome skepticism in my work because I'm like, I am the first skeptical. All right. Like when I meet people and I'm like, you know, receiving their work, I'm like such a fucking skeptical. Like I wouldn't want to be like a client of mine. Although actually I would, like now that I think about it, yes, I would, because I appreciate when people are skeptical because I don't want you to just take what I say blindly, but actually like feel into it. Like, how does it feel? Does it resonate with you? Do you want to have a different opinion? Please do if you feel that. I remember that when I was learning Reiki, I did Reiki level 1, Reiki level 2. I became a Reiki master and I have done Reiki trainings, like to teach other people how to attune to this energy and to use it in their lives. It's like, I mean, it's one of the best things that ever happened to me. Like, oh my God, it's the best thing ever. And I remember that when I was like doing this Reiki trainings or whatever, like I appreciated the fact that like some people didn't believe in it, and I welcome people to just like experience it by themselves. And I remember that there was a teacher that I followed at the time that was Reiki master, and that said, if you don't feel like what we're telling you with Reiki is your thing, go and fucking download a new way. Like go and figure it out or download or connect your own method, your own thing, like the new Reiki. I don't know. And I really appreciated that. And in a way, like now I'm actually thinking about doing a Reiki training here in Marbella in person that may be recorded, so also people that are not here in Marbella can take it. But I do have to say that like, yes, I'm very like, I really love the Reiki tradition, but I have added my own like a spice to it, my own magic to it. Like it's not going to be like very like traditional, this is exactly what they told me kind of Reiki training, because I do put my my mark on everything. And I hope that my clients, and I know that a lot of them are the same, like they really like their space and their freedom, and the freedom that they have in my spaces to have their own things and to have their own opinions and to experience more than just like blindly following something that's really not the way that we want to go about when it comes to spirituality. I always talk about spirituality in a very grounded way. Like it's not like, I'm just like as woo-woo thing as like fucking skeptical and grounded in the earth. And I think that's a really beautiful way to look at it. And I also think that because of that, the kind of conversations that I'm going to have with you in the podcast in the next 3 episodes are going to be fun, because sometimes when I go a lot into the earth, I am one of those people that can question everything. Like, is magic real? Like, what the fuck are we doing here? What is the point of all of this? What are we doing? Talk conversations about the ego and what it means, all of those things. And so I think that I'm very grateful to the fact that like I am as earthy as I am, ethereal or whatever. And so anyway, so to come back to the point of this episode, there's 3 conversations that I've had lately with spirit, with energies. I believe that we're all walking with support. And what I mean by that is we're all walking with either angels or ancestors or people that have been in our lives that have passed, that are there with us. Like their energy is there with us to support us, to give us guidance. And even like, I do believe that we also walk with collectives from other planets and species and, all out there in the universe that I haven't been to, I don't know. But anyway, that we walk with them because they help us, evolve. Like it is within their interest for us to evolve. And it is, within our interest to also evolve. And so, funny thing, this is just like something that's coming through and I want to say it. I was listening to this podcast that talks about, it's called Telepathy Tapes, I think. And it is a podcast that's doing research on autistic kids that have telepathic abilities. And it's super interesting. I do recommend it. Anyway, I've loved the show, and it reminded me of the first ever dream that I had about telepathy. And so I remember that I had this dream, I think it was like 2019, 2020, when I was like developing my abilities of like telepathic communication and what it actually felt like to channel. And I remember having this dream, and this was like at the top of a building, and it felt like vivid dream. And in the dream, I was at the top of the building and the aliens were coming down like at the time. The thing is, from the very beginning of my awakening of my abilities and like my connections with being able to read energy and to develop like my advanced quote unquote pieces of my intuition, or I call them. I'm sure that if you've listened to the episode before, you know what I mean when I say the advanced abilities of my intuition, which is, our intuition. It's like our senses on steroids. Like it's not just what we're seeing right now, what we're hearing right now, what we're feeling right now, what we're sensing right now, what we're tasting right now. But it's like all of those, but sensing, feeling, seeing, thinking, hearing beyond the physical world. So spirits, frequencies, waves, energies, like all of those things, like other beings. And so when we begin to awaken our abilities to that kind of sensitivity, there's a lot of work there, by the way, because we cannot just walk around with that stuff and like not know how to work it. Anyway, and again, that's been like the work of my life, and teaching my clients how to like not be too sensitive, or like, yes, be sensitive, but learn how to operate and have their own boundaries and discerning when it comes to working with different entities and energies and things like that. So it's actually super fun, and it can sound maybe a little bit like woo-woo or weird, but it's actually really fun and really easy. It's just like you've got to know how to navigate a world that, we have not been taught really how to. And there's a lot of people out there that can be teaching it, and perhaps they don't have the best intention. And so anyway, so when it comes to that, like I've in my journey, I remember the first like companion that I like had contact with. Her name was Angelica. I think that if you actually go to the way back of these episodes, you are going to hear me talk about her, because she was the first angel that came through and like began to help me awaken my abilities. And I remember that she was the first one that told me like, you're not meant to learn from earthly teachers. Like your work, because of your destiny and your journey, it's actually about believing in your ability to download this information without like earthly confirmation. So I have had like earthly teachers, but most of them have been collectives. And so my first one was like Angelica. And then after her, I began to work with, I remember like quote unquote aliens came through and I was like, oh my God, what the heck is this? Anyway, so by that time that I was working with like different collectives, developing my psychic abilities and all of the things, I had this dream because they were telling me about telepathy. And I was like, okay, but like, I mean, you can understand what telepathy is, but it's like until you actually like experience it, you're like, whoa. And so that was the dream that reminded me of this podcast episode because they were describing what telepathy is and the different levels of it. And I remember, I think it was like the third episode or something like that. I was like, oh my God, I know exactly what you're talking about. So this dream for me was the first time that I like communicated like consciously, pathically. So I was at the top of this building, quote unquote, the aliens were coming down. Like, they were like revealing themselves to us here on Earth. Anyway, they looked like Teletubbies. Like, have you ever seen the Teletubbies? I don't know. Anyway, some of you will get it. Some of you will be like, Daniela, okay, missed you here. Anyway, so they look like Teletubbies, which was like hilarious because I guess that's my interpretation of what aliens would look like. And then they like just like looked at me and then they were speaking to me. Like I was hearing their thoughts. Like we were speaking telepathically. But then, of course, me, like just an earthly human, was like talking to them in words. And they were like, you don't need to use words. Like it's actually almost like a waste of energy, or like you don't need to use your energy or frequency to like speak out loud because it's actually more effective for us to communicate just in the mind. And I remember like doing the adjustment in the dream, like, oh shit, so basically now we're talking. And they're like, yeah. And I was like, oh, don't have to say a word. So that was like my experience, and it felt so vivid, so raw. Like I was like, oh my God, this is real. Then I woke up and I realized aliens hadn't come down yet, and I had just awakened deeper my understanding of the telepathy and communication when it comes to frequencies and things like that. But yeah, they are not here yet. So anyway, so why am I telling you this? Because like ever since my communication with higher intelligence and different collectives and frequencies and higher consciousness has developed, and these conversations are really fun because sometimes I can just literally have this like telepathic communications in my mind and, you know, ask questions. And it's interesting because sometimes I can be like really caught up in my mind, like frustrated about something, and I'm going to give you an example, like the episode today, I'm going to tell you like, you know, in a low point where I was like, what the fuck is the point of this life? Like I had a low moment, and you will see that, you know, sometimes I'm asking questions or like really having no understanding of certain things because in this moment I am a little clouded with, you know, some kind of like limiting beliefs or some kind of doctrines that we have been taught here on Earth, or just clouded in my mind. And you're going to notice that the consciousness in which these answers come through, it's way higher than like where I am currently vibrating at. So what I like about that, and you're going to notice what I'm talking about in a minute, but what I like about that is that it has different layers, like depending on how you're feeling right now, how is your energy right now, what kind of frequency you're vibrating at, how open your consciousness is, how much you have on your plate right now. These conversations will land differently for you. That's why I really love when it comes to spirituality that like one thing can mean so many things for different people. And that's why I welcome a skepticism. And that's why I welcome you that when you hear this, you make your own assumptions and your own meaning of your truth and what this means for you. And so, but when I'm having these conversations, you notice that like I'm stuck in a certain kind of, you know, thinking and belief, and they kind of support me with a new way of looking at it and a new way of thinking. And so that is that. And so the first conversation that I want to talk to you about, the first one, there's 3 of them. One happened a little while ago, and I remember this because I did a live on my Telegram, like my free Telegram channel. By the way, if you're not there, I'm just going to plug it right here. Make sure that you join our free Telegram channel. It's where I share the most because for me, as you've noticed, it's the easiest to just share through voice and like longer formats. It's really hard for me sometimes to try to like communicate what I want to say in like 60 seconds. I mean, hello, that's fucking hard. So Telegram is the best way for me to speak and share my heart and connect with all of you. And it's a completely free channel. And if you like what I speak about and my work, and you feel connected, you feel activated, you feel magic, this is a great way to continue to stay plugged in between the episodes. The link is in the show notes. Okay, so with that, I remember that I did a live there, I think a week and a half ago, where I remember that I had one of these conversations that I wanted to share. And so it reminded me, like, oh, yesterday when I was thinking about what's this episode going to be about, I was like, why don't I just share this kind of conversations that, they may resonate with you, they may not, but I really appreciate people that pour life into me. I really appreciate people that think outside of the box, or they're having these kind of open-ended conversations that make me think differently. And so because I'm all about transformation, I'm all about helping you think differently, helping you see things differently, helping you move differently, helping you vibrate at a higher, different frequency. So I thought that these conversations would be really, really, really great. Just like, I'm not here with an agenda. I'm here with you sharing, like, very vulnerably and very open, my kind of conversations with spirit. And I know that if this information is helpful for me, which it's tremendously, I know that it will be helpful for many people to hear these conversations as well. And I think they're so simple, and sometimes they're funny, and sometimes it's like, I mean, we have literally a beautiful conversation. And so I just think it's going to be really fun for you to hear. The first piece that I want to share with you is, in this journey that I have been of having like the biggest spiritual development and dark night of the soul, and like literally like stripping down everything out of me that feels like I've been like left almost empty, which in a way feels really nice. But this like dark night of the soul, or like hero's journey that I've been in, has gotten me to really low points, like extremely low points, where I begin to question things that I actually believe that have gotten me to deepen my connection to what I actually believe in and who I actually am. And so in one of these low points, I began to ask, like, what is the point of this? What is the point of life? What the fuck are we doing here? And why? Like, there has been like such a hard the last 2 years have been like so hard for me. And sometimes you kind of lose hope of like, okay, but what is the fucking point of all of this, right? Like, what are we here for? And I always think about my clients, and I think about what is it that they want? What is it that they seek? How can I help them see light and purpose and love and, attunement into abundance and prosperity in this life? But in my low points, I don't know if you ever ask yourself this, but I have asked myself, like, but what is the point? Like, what is it that we really want? Because I have gotten to incredible levels of success, and you are there and then you're not, and then you're there and then you're still kind of the same. And then there is ups and then there is downs. And then you begin to almost like in a point, begin to question, like, are we just here to suffer? Are we just here to like lose things? Are we just here to gain things temporarily? Like, what is the point of life? Like, are we here to master something? Are we ever going to just be happy? And because I always notice that like life, it's ups and downs. Life is constant movement. It's alive. Like, life is alive. And so sometimes, we can break through new levels, and then there is a new level of that. And you're like, where are we fucking going? Like, when am I going to be able to, like, I don't know, just feel like I've made it? Or is there a point where we made it? Or what is that point? And how do we know that we've made it? And so I was in this point where I was like, is it that we want money? And if we want money, is that where we make it? Is it that we want love? And if we get love, is that where we make it? I was having one of those moments. And that day, Valentina picked me up, my friend. If you actually been in the podcast and you've been in my programs, you know that Valentina is a dear friend of mine. And her and I have beautiful, beautiful, incredible conversations. She actually was one of my first students of Reiki trainings, and she also became a Reiki master herself. Anyway, so we have really, really great conversations. And she picked me up that day. I was really not in the mood because I was in my own head just seeking for answers about, like, what is the point? Why are we here? Like, are we here just to suffer? Are we always going to be in the upside downs? Like, is there a point where we, I don't know, are not working on something? Or what is it that we really desire? Because a lot of the times we feel like we want things, and then when we get them, it's like it's a temporary second. And then we're like, okay, what else? And so anyway, I was just not feeling it, but she was like, let's go eat something. And so she picked me up and we went to this beautiful restaurant. It's like a little cafe. I really love it. And so we were sitting there and we're having a beautiful conversation. And all of a sudden I was just like, okay, Valentina. So like, but for real, like I have been thinking, what is the point of all of this? What is the point of all of this? And so we began this beautiful conversation where she was sharing with me that she has been reading this book. The book, it's called The Disappearance of the Universe. And she's been reading this book for a while. Like she's been slow in her reading. And so we've been talking about this book before. And she was saying that in that book, they're saying that the point is forgiveness. Because in the book, there is this idea that we are here in this universe because we're here to like forgive our separation from God, per se. Like they're saying that this universe is a result of our separation from light and from God. And so when we forgive ourselves and we see that we have been separated from God and from light, then this universe will disappear and we're going to return back to oneness. And so she was saying that in this book, they're saying that the point is actually forgiveness, like to forgive selves and therefore to be able to like to forgive what we are and who we are and to go back to acceptance. And that when we have forgiveness and acceptance, then there is nothing that's separated from us. So she was saying that that was what the book was saying. And I was like, I hear you. And there's a part of me that is like, okay, I see the point. And then while we're having this conversation, I'm having my own awareness. And it was not until I came back home that I actually tuned in to this like a spirit conversation. But her conversation, like our conversation in this coffee shop, opened up like a different way of thinking for me. And so I was like, okay, so what if it's not about like a one thing or like something that we're going towards, but what if it's like more of like a journey or a process? And so in that conversation, I was telling her, like, the way that I'm seeing it more like the point of us being here on earth. It's about expanding our consciousness. And what that means is like, we're here on this world to get to a realization and then expand from that. It's like us seeing ourselves as this never-ending life, like there is no ending and there is like no, oh, here's where you end or here is your limit. Like there's really none of that. And what we're here to do, I was telling her, like, I think we're just here to like expand our consciousness of like how much can we expand into these quote unquote ideas of who we are and realize that none of those ideas are able to compartmentalize everything that we are, because we are bigger than ideas. And every time we're like go against an idea of who we are, we can break through that idea because we are limitless. Like our ability to shape shift, our ability to change our beliefs, our ability to literally physically change. It's like we are not one thing, and we're never going to stay as that one thing because we are constant growth and constant evolution. We are like rolling consciousness that continues to realize itself. And so I was like, I think that it's more of the point. The point, it's like we are here, and every time we are almost like hitting the limitations of what we think we are, we're yet in another wave of seeing ourselves from a different lens, from a different perspective. And so what if there is no ending to this, because there is no ending to that, to us. There is no ending to who we are. And in that conversation, I was remembering a conversation that I had with my other friend, Ale. We are friends since high school. This woman is like my dear sister. And we have really, really open-ended conversations about spirituality, about aliens, about witches, about treasures. It's really, really fun to have those conversations with her. And so I remember having a conversation with her, and she saying that one of the things for her is that she realized that Earth is one of those places where is a place where we come to heal. Like we are, this rolling consciousness and these beings, light beings, basically, and that we come here to Earth because on Earth is where we heal. And what she means by healing, she says that healing is basically our ability to see ourselves from a wider perspective, which is basically what I'm saying, right? It's like we come here to Earth to break through, and there's a word that wants to come through and I don't know which one it is, but almost like shattered the limited ideas of what we are and what we're not. Anything that separates us from our truth. Here on earth, we're here to shatter that and get rid of that. And so she's saying that the only place where we can do that, where we can actually expand our own awareness of ourselves, it's here on earth. So it's like, okay, I hear you on that. So anyway, hear me when I say that I really like these different perspectives. So I'm never somebody that is going to have one way of looking at things, or to judge you for the way that you look at things, or to be restricted in the way that I look at things, because I think that spirituality, we all have our own interpretation, and we're meant to have our own interpretations because our own journey is different. Like, we're here to remind ourselves of our truth, and we all get to have like this experiences of what that looks like. And one of the things that I've noticed, like sometimes I needed to think a certain way in order to come back around to think a different way. Like, I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but like sometimes I've had to believe something in order to figure out that that's not what I actually like at all, to be able to then believe in something else. And so that sometimes happens, that you've got to believe something and then realize that that doesn't actually fulfill you, or that actually that does not resonate with your truth anymore, in order for you to then go into another belief more strongly. And so when I came home, I was like, okay, so what is the point of all of this? Like, I took out my notebook and I was like, what is the point of all of this? And what was coming through, here's where I want to leave you in this episode. This is what came through in my little notebook. First, I started to write myself. And I started to write, what is the point? And it came through: expansion of consciousness, connection, self-love, self-acceptance, liberation, alignment, self-knowledge, cracking the code of being ourselves. This word has been coming through so much, like throughout the years, like cracking the code of being ourselves, and a return to wholeness. My first ever online program was called A Return to Wholeness. And I still have those meditations that I did inside A Return to Wholeness in one of my programs now that's called Becoming Her. Because those meditations, I swear to you, they're magic. Like, there's codes in those meditations that have helped me and so many of my clients return to deeper truth. Those meditations and their healings are inside of one of my programs called Becoming Her. When you work with me one-on-one, you get access to those as well. Okay, so now here is where their little piece came through. In this piece, it's very short. So sometimes in other episodes, you're going to see that our conversations are way longer. But for this specific one, just because this is the first one, I want to like tease you a little bit. This is what they're coming with. The point is, and a lot of the times you're going to also notice, just got to say this, I talk in we, and because it's a we conscious, we collectives, we. So you're going to notice that a lot of the times, even in my videos and in everything, I talk about we, because I consider myself part of the collective, of course. And so it's going to come in a we. The point is, we're not going anywhere. We are just having an experience. We're not going anywhere. We're just having an experience. And we are taking, and what we are taking is the layers that are not ourselves. Let me explain this a little bit. What we are taking is the layers that were not ourselves, and how much we release what was not ours. So let me just explain that for a moment. We're not going anywhere. We're actually just having an experience. And what we're actually taking off are the layers that are not ourselves, and how much we're able to release what was not ours to begin with. So the last piece says, what we take with us, and what this means is what we take with us when we passed on, when we die, when we passed on, is how much we are. Let me say that again. What we take with us is how much we were able to leave behind. So when we passed, the whole point of this life was how much we were actually able to leave behind. And that is a very interesting place, because sometimes we're so caught up with what we are acquiring here, and so caught up in like this specific moment and how successful we are and how much we've acquired and how much we have or don't have. But the truth is that in the bigger picture of things, when we passed, what will truly matter is how much we're able to leave behind, how much we were able to take off those layers that were not who we truly are. So it's about how much we leave behind. At the same time, and I want to add this as a little caveat before I end the episode, is that I forgot to mention this, but when I was having the conversation with Valentina, we were also having this conversation that I told her that sometimes I feel caught up in between. Yes, but I want to live this earthly experience. And I want and have desires of how I want my life to be in the earth and the things that I want to experience on earth and like my kind of like earthly desires. And at the same time, I also have this idea that it's like, I know my soul is guiding me to expansion. My soul is guiding me to learning deeper about myself and the ways in which I have separated from my truth and the ways in which I am not really truly seeing my power until I see it again and again and again and again. And so my soul has a way of always showing me that you think you're this powerful? Let me show you like how much more powerful you are. And what I mean by power, I mean by how capable I am, how much capacity I have of loving myself, how much capacity I have of letting go of what I think will give me some kind of relief, validation, approval, anything that is outside of myself. My soul has a way of showing me again and again and again how capable I am and who I truly am at the very core. And so I notice that sometimes, and this happens, that we are caught up between like, yes, but I have earthly desires. Like, I don't want to be a hippie, like, not caring about anything in the world. But I also do have this big, beautiful connection about the bigger picture. And I think that we're able to have both. I think that as we realize and really understanding and deepen our connection to the bigger picture, like what they're saying here, that at the end of the day, what truly matters is that we're able to leave things behind. And they don't necessarily think, or I don't think they're talking about, or what it felt like for me, you have your own interpretation of this after, but for me, I don't think they're talking about what we're able to leave behind materialistically speaking, because we will live those things and we all know that. So hello, that's not news. But what they're meaning is how much we're able to leave behind when it comes to belief systems, when it comes to regrets and forgiveness, and when it comes to identities, ways of operating. And so that at the end of the day, the point is how much we're able to strip back things that are limitations to our endless possibility and our endless nature. And that's a really beautiful thing to realize, that at the end of the day, it's going to be about how much I was able to leave behind, and not talking about materialistic things, talking about how much I was able to leave behind lies, illusions, limitations, belief structures that were not my true self. And so on that note, the point also, I believe, in this human experience is that we are able to have a great fucking time here too. Like, I don't really believe that we're just here to suffer, although this is another piece of the conversation with Valentina, that like, in order for us to experience deep amounts of joy, we've got to also know what the opposite feels like. And it's true when I was saying that sometimes we need to believe one thing in order to then come back to another belief more strongly. It's the same. We have this like polar opposites here that really show us one another. Like, the more we experience darkness, the more we're able to like really experience the light and back and forth. And so I don't think that we're just here to suffer, but I think that we're here to fully experience that spectrum of what we're capable of. And at the same time, when it comes to our like earthly life, I mean, this is a really cool, fun holograph. Like, we are able to create really beautiful things here. We're able to connect with each other in a very beautiful thing. We're able to love each other very deeply, to have so much intimacy with each other, to have amazing experiences. Like, Earth is fun. And so all of this to say that I came back to like what's really important, and what I always tell my clients is like present and not perfect. The more we remind ourselves that like what truly matters and the purpose of all of this is that we are present every single day in our lives, that we wake up not thinking about 5 years ahead or 5 years back, but we're thinking about today. I'm present. I'm here. This is a gift. This is a blessing. This is beautiful. How much love I can pour into myself today and into the world today. And so coming back to the present moment and really being able to stay present in this beautiful life in the material plane. Well, we have desires. Yes, have desires. Like, do have desires and aspirations and things that you want to have. Like, I mean, I love clothing and I love beautiful things and luxury things. And so all of that, it's beautiful, it's perfect. But we've got to, in a way, I think that have always this awareness of that there's just not that. but it's also is not just the other. Like we get to have this awareness of the point of all of this, that it's enjoying, discovering, experiencing. But the truth is that we are here in a big fucking mission from the like bird's eye view. That can also be funny because it's like we're here like doing this big like soul work and remembering our truth that sometimes it's like hard for our minds to even comprehend. And at the same time, we're having all of these desires of things that we want to do, like mundane things. And I don't know, I just think it's a whole experience. And so anyway, I leave you there with this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I do want to let you know that if you are feeling the pull to work together in this moment, I am still in the enrollment of Destiny Mastermind. And what Destiny Mastermind really is, it's a 4-week, we're extending it to 5, but it's a 5-week mastermind where I'm going to help you align deeper to your truth. One of the things that I've noticed in my work is that after the last 2 years and my growth personally, spiritually, mentally, a lot has changed in the way that I'm leading now. A lot has changed in the way that I am and how I relate to my purpose and how I relate to my work and who I am at work and who I am in my personal life. And big work of that was being able to let go of what was, because for a while now, when I was feeling a little lost in things, I wanted to go back to who I used to be. I wanted to kind of grasp to the Daniela that was before my dark night of the soul. Like I wanted to go back to how things were, but we're never able to just go back because it's impossible to go back. Because when we have expanded our consciousness, we're never going to fit in the same clothes ever again. And so that was one of my processes. Like I needed to let go of who I had been and not to have this need to go back and forgive and accept and let go. And the second thing is that I also needed to find forgiveness of the messy period that I couldn't control and what has happened and what happened and my own process, because as a perfectionist and as somebody that it is, I am, and I'm continuously working on it, but I have a tendency of being really hard on myself and to be, like this person that expects a lot from myself. And so in that work of that, like it was work for me to forgive the fact that I was not in control for a period of my life, that things got out of control a little bit, that I couldn't really figure things out, that I was not to my expectations. And that was a forgiveness on its own. And so Destiny and my desire to create Destiny was to help women in business to realign who they truly are now with their business. Because a lot of the times we are leading business from who we used to be because we're afraid to let that go. Or sometimes we're leading business from anger and frustration of what is happening or what has happened. And all of that can show up as like energetic misalignment, clients not feeling so great in our world, things not flowing. And so coming back to alignment, coming back to magic, it's all about evolution and growth and letting go of the past to be able to step into the new from a very powerful space and a powerful place. And so that's what Destiny is about. We're going to work with your soul and see where you're at along the journey of your purpose and if there is any alignment that needs to happen there. And so that we can then integrate that into the business. So this mastermind is powerful work. And I'm very excited for that. So if you want to know more about Destiny, I will link the information on the show notes. But you can also feel free to message me directly on Instagram and just tell me Destiny, and I will share more information about the mastermind, or maybe there's another space that's better fit for you. Thank you so much for listening into the episode and to the podcast. If you loved this episode, first of all, let me know. Please, I'd love to know if this resonated with you. This is I kind of like a different episode that I'm trying out. So honestly speaking, I'm a little nervous about it. So I would love to hear from you. And then second, if you actually loved it, share with somebody that you think would actually be enlightened by this conversation. Like this is the kind of conversations that I love having with my friends. And so if you have a friend that it's like this, share the podcast. And I will appreciate it so, so much. Have a lovely, lovely, lovely time. Talk soon.